Episode 15, Season 4 of the Cup of Mets podcast. It is trade deadline day. We're recording at around 1:05 p.m. Eastern time. Granted, we'll most likely be editing this thing up and posting it when other moves are finalized and whatnot. It's been a busy last 48 hours for the Mets. Matt, how we doing first and foremost?
Good, man. It's honestly one of my favorite days of the year on the sports calendar. I feel like there's nothing better than MLB Trade Deadline. You got the NFL deadline, NBA, which you see action, but in terms of the MLB, you see actual stars getting moved in their prime,
Yep.
when they should be getting paid by their own team. So it's awesome. It's not great when you're at work, just on Twitter the entire day, but um yeah, the Mets made some moves yesterday, which we're going to talk about soon. Um, but I think they made some good moves, and I think they got to keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep going indeed. And you brought up, refreshing Twitter and X and whatnot. I think that I have opened up the tab and have scrolled at least north of like 100 times. I wouldn't be surprised if we spew out another couple hundred tweets by the end of today. Just touching upon a few big moves that we've seen thus far between late last night, and this morning. Tons of big names have been moved. Okay. First and foremost, Eugenio Suarez heads back to Seattle from Arizona for Tyler Locklear, a first baseman, and two other prospects. The big bombshell, Mason Miller, heads from the Athletics to the Padres. The Padres bullpen gets even deeper. We saw it on full display this past week as the Mets were swept by the Padres. Leo DeVries, the top prospect for the Padres, third overall in baseball, heads to the Athletics. I think you tweeted it out earlier today. Him and Jacob Wilson up the middle for years to come is going to be pretty for wherever the Athletics end up playing. Just moments ago, Harrison Bader was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's something, the return is kind of unknown right now, but that was something that we were going to talk about. Mets obviously trying to get a center fielder as well, some sort of outfield help, another bat. And he was someone that was rumored to potentially be a target for the Mets. So it appears he's off the board. Shane Bieber, who has not yet pitched this season in a big league game, has been rehabbing from Tommy John. He heads from Cleveland to Toronto as Toronto tries to bulk up that system. They sent their fifth overall prospect, I believe. And when it comes to the Mets, obviously we need a starter, but we need a starter that can go more than 5 innings and doesn't have to be eased in. So never really thought that Shane Bieber was a target for the Mets. Andrew Kidrich heads from Baltimore to Chicago last night. Michael Soroka went from Washington to Chicago as well. And then Kyle Finnegan was just traded from the Nationals to the Tigers. Rafael Montero and Paul Sewald, two former Mets as well, head to Detroit. And then Steven Matz, Long Island native, heads from St. Louis to Boston. Before we get into what the Mets did yesterday and what they could potentially do in the 5 hours or so leading up to the deadline, what's the biggest move that you've seen thus far that's making you scratch your head a little bit?
I mean, AJ Preller's on his last leg. He knows that if he doesn't win something, he's gone. So, I mean, Mason Miller is a very good player, but they gave up. Leo DeVries is going to be a very, very good middle infielder for years to come. I think the Athletics did great. I feel like anytime you have a high leverage reliever and he's on the books for more than 3, 4 years, you're going to bring in an absolute haul. But I also feel like it's the right thing to do just based off of positional value. And for them to get back the value of Leo DeVries, I think, Billy Bean is very happy today, knowing that that's what he just brought back.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they also brought in three other top prospects as well, from Braden Nett to, I believe, Henry Baez and one other. I can't really pick them out right now, but again, quite a haul for the Athletics. I mean, listen, when I'm seeing Cleveland start to trade a guy like Shane Bieber, who they expected to come back next year,
Hmm.
you kind of say to yourself, especially with the news emerging that Emmanuel Clase joined Luis Ortiz on the
Yeah.
administrative leave, right? Potentially gambling on the game. Uh, you kind of think to yourself, I mean, A, good move for both parties. Toronto gets a starter. They also have a decent bullpen, so they can afford to ease him back in, whereas like the Mets can, as I mentioned before. Um, but Cleveland also may be trying to trade Stephen Kwan as well. He has ties to the Padres, the Dodgers, a couple other teams have been interested in his services as well. So kind of remains to be seen, but that's just something of note. And one other thing I do want to mention here before we get into the nitty and gritty of the Mets, I know I mentioned Harrison Bader sent to, oh, here we go. I just mentioned Stephen Kwan. John Paul Morosi just said that Stephen Kwan trade viewed as increasingly likely. So wherever Stephen Kwan ends up, we'll know by later today, if not during this episode. In the Harrison Bader trade, the Phillies sent over two lightly regarded prospects, outfielder Hendry Mendez and right-hander Jeremy Villaroya. I'm not sure if they're in the top 30. Doubt it, but
What was
yeah.
their last names?
Hendry Mendez, and then
Is their
right-handed.
number 12?
Okay, and then Jeremy with a G, Villaroya. Villaroya. I know him.
I don't think he's on their top 30.
Yeah, I know I'm botching that last name, but listen, I mean that's a decent haul for the Twins, getting him on a rental. Mets know a thing or two about rentals right now, but again, a
Mhm.
lot of moving pieces are occurring, and hopefully we can find something out in the midst of while we are recording as it pertains to the Mets. But as you said before, trade deadline, what an incredible day in baseball. It has been, I mean, listen, the sellers are getting everything and anything from top prospects to major league ready ball players. And it just shows, we've brought it up multiple times, unless there was a big type of discrepancy in terms of how teams fell out of the wild card race, there was going to be a lot more buyers than sellers, right? Even a team like the Reds, I didn't mention this, but Key Brian Hayes traded from the Pirates to the Reds, right? And we've seen a lot of that. Getting to the Mets, however, yesterday afternoon, as you know, the Mets and Padres were underway in the series finale where they got manhandled by Yu Darvish. The report came out that the Mets acquired right-handed pitcher Tyler Rogers, the submariner, shades of Chad Bradford. He's got a 1.80 ERA on the season. FIP is just a little above 2. The Mets sent over Jose Butto, Blade Tidwell, and Drew Gilbert. I know that we all had the same reaction at first.
Yeah.
What on earth, right? And that was probably one of the first dominoes that fell yesterday. So that kind of set the market, the trend for the market when it came to relievers. What again, we were both like kind of scratching our heads saying, wow, they gave up a ton for a rental reliever, 34-year-old, despite how good he's been over the last several years. What's your take on that acquisition? And, you know, what were your initial thoughts about what we gave up?
So, I mean, I'd have to say everybody's initial thoughts might have been that we did give up pretty hefty price for a rental. But I do think that everybody is very much attached to the Drew Gilbert name based
Yep.
off of us getting him for Verlander and that, he did have a lot of hype around him. But what a lot of people need to realize is he was Rule 5 eligible this upcoming winter. He is not a David Stearns guy. He was acquired by Billy Epler. So you have to think that their analytics, their scouting guys are probably like, we don't really like how he's going to profile at the MLB level. A lot of people were thinking that he wouldn't even be a starting outfielder. He'd be a fourth outfielder and a bench piece. Um, so realistically, I think it's okay after looking at it. I do think that they gave up a pretty hefty price. But I think the Mets are they're going all in at this point. But realistically, I didn't think that we were gonna have to give up both Blade Tidwell and Drew Gilbert for rental.
Yeah, yeah. I think that just looking at that, right, and the Mets obviously made a move later on in the day as well, which we'll touch upon, but they're two very different trades, despite both being rentals that are very highly thought after, very established as well. The first and foremost is that a guy like Jose Butto, Drew Gilbert, and Blade Tidwell. Tidwell, we saw at the major league level. Gilbert, we knew that he was either going to get called up or traded. I think we both expected both of those guys to be dealt at the deadline. It just we didn't expect it to be in one trade
Yeah.
unless it was for a controllable piece. I agree with you. So many people were attached to the Drew Gilbert name, right? But he really has struggled this season at AAA, and he only kind of got hot over the last month or so. Hitting 250 with 14 home runs. He's also struck out 63 times in 329 plate appearances. So again, when you look at it from that aspect, along with the fact that he's Rule 5 eligible, Mets would have had to add him to the 40 man. And then you look at a guy like Blade Tidwell. He's been an erratic arm at every single level that he's pitched at. Evaluators don't know if ultimately he's going to wind up as a long man in a bullpen or as a starter, right? We
Hmm.
saw the fact that he could be around the zone, pumping great stuff, but also walking 4 or 5 batters, in a game, in a start. So there's that. I think the biggest thing with Jose Butto, and I found it funny, when I saw Oscar Brazoban falter in the series opener against the Padres, up 5-1, Montes kind of started losing it, was 5-3, brought in Brazoban, and then he completely imploded. Mets sent him down the next day. I was like, that's the right move, right? Use one of his options. He's controllable. When I saw Jose Butto struggle the very next night, and that's the second time in the last week that he's really struggled, along with the series finale against the Angels at home, I really looked at the big picture and I said, it's great that he's controllable. But at the end of the day, with Butto, you really never know what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
Very inconsistent, up and down, has a great arm, but you, you just, when you're looking towards October, you say to yourself, realistically, unless you know what you're going to get, you don't want a guy like Brazoban or a guy like Butto in your bullpen. You don't want them pitching in October. Butto is not the same player he was last season, right? And I think that it just kind of goes to show, he has value being under team control, only 27, and then being able to do away with Gilbert and Tidwell, who to us Met fans, the names are much bigger than maybe they were to other evaluators and other teams. All in all, I think that we all definitely came down off of our high horses when it came to that, and then just looking at Tyler Rogers, I mean, he's an unbelievable arm, first and foremost. Okay. He's got a 180 ERA, as I mentioned earlier, 0.86 whip. And that's something else that I kind of said to myself, look at the Mets bullpen, even the best of them, even Edwin Diaz. What's his biggest kryptonite? Walking guys, right? And that's the same with Stanek, same with Garrett, same with Brazoban, Butto, this, that, and the third. Tyler Rogers is within the 99th percentile when it comes to walk percentage. So he's not letting free passes. Okay. Also,
Hmm.
when it comes to barrel percentage, 100th percentile. Average exit velo, 99th percentile. Expected ERA, 99th percentile. Hard hit percentage, 95th percentile. Ground ball rate, 99th percentile. The interesting thing about him is his fastball velo tops out, which, listen, he's like a sinker slider type of guy, but and his
Hmm.
arm angle, obviously submariner, minus 60 degrees per baseball savant. Listen, he averages out at like 84, 85, 86 miles per hour. So he doesn't throw hard. It's just the unique arm angle, the deception that hitters see. And then on top of it, he's just been beyond durable. So to be able to get somebody that's experienced towards the back end of the bullpen, somebody who won't shy away from throwing over 70 innings in a season. He's done it each of the last 2 seasons as well. I mean, he fits right into the Mets mold right now. And Mendoza now, I mean, until the second trade occurred, Mendoza had somebody else that he could go to in the eighth inning because, again, we knew that Stearns was going to look to get the bullpen help, but
Hmm.
it has become increasingly clear that a guy like Reed Garrett and Ryan Stanek should not be setting up for Edwin Diaz. That is not the correct bridge. And to get
Yeah.
Tyler Rogers now, after getting Gregory Soto the other day, who Soto picked up the loss in the series opener against the Padres, but it was more so the yips, right? Kind of like a Pete
Hmm.
Alonso. But again, I think that all in all, it was a good trade. Again, sucks to lose controllable pieces for a rental, but you got to give to get.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. And at this point, the Mets window is like it's they need to go for it at some point. And at the end of the day, they've been drafting well and they've been signing international free agents well, and at some, like you said, you got to give to get. And if you want to get better, you're going to have to give.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to say this quickly. Two notes. The Yankees are talking to the Marlins about either Edward Cabrera or Sandy Alcantara, but they're asking for top prospect Spencer Jones in return. So that kind of shows you what the Mets would probably have to give up for a controllable starter, especially within division. And then the second thing is I know I mentioned Harrison Bader before, Mets on the prowl for center fielder. Multiple sources have reported that the White Sox are most likely viewed to hold on to Luis Robert Jr. They're looking to hold on to him, maybe pick up his $20 million option for after this year. Hopefully he rebounds, but with Bader headed to the Phillies from the Twins, Luis Robert may not be traded unless the team blows them away. That kind of sucks. So big question marks moving forward. Again, we'll
Yeah.
touch upon the outfield scenario. But then again, later on in the day, then the Phillies go ahead and they acquire Johan Duran, who's one of the best closers in the game from the Minnesota Twins. Traded Mick Abel as well as catcher Eduardo Tate, both top 30 prospects, top 10 prospects for the Phillies, both within the top 100 as well. And about 15 minutes later, the Mets went ahead and acquired Ryan Helsley, two-time All-Star from the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, I love this move. Now you're
Yep.
looking at a bullpen of Diaz, Helsley, Tyler Rogers, Ryan Stanek, Brooks Raley, Reed Garrett, Gregory Soto, and most likely Chris Davinsky. They, in exchange, traded away their number 8 prospect, Jesus Baez. He was an international signee a couple years ago. We've mentioned him several times. Their 15th overall prospect, I believe third rounder last year, Nate Dome, as well as unranked right-handed pitcher Frank. Is it Elisalt? Is that
Yeah.
is that how you
Ellisalt, I
pronounce?
believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting spelling. Obviously, Helsley has had much better seasons in the past. Last year, 204 ERA, 79 strikeouts, and 66 and a third of an inning. This year, he's got a 3 ERA in 36 games. But again, he's arguably got the best slider in the game. There's a
Yeah.
stat within Fangraphs called Stuff Plus. Okay. Helsley is number 1. Tyler Rogers is number 3. Not entirely sure all the calculations that go into that statistic. But again, when you look at a guy like Helsley who has a dominant sliders where hitters are hitting .92 against, okay,
Hmm.
and then you go ahead and you couple in a fastball that has been hit a little bit harder this year than in years past, a fastball that tops out at 100 miles per hour. You look at the back end of the bullpen and you say, wow, the Mets did damage. And until the Padres acquired Mason Miller a little while ago, you were kind of saying to yourself, hey, the Mets might have one of the best bullpens on paper in baseball. And they still do, right? But getting Helsley was just icing on top of the cake. I love how they did it right after Duran. And then, the great thing is that he closed out 49 games last year. So he has the ability when Diaz is not available to go in and be a bona fide closer. I absolutely love this move. And, I mentioned before the differences between the two trades. Rogers and Helsley, you both have to give up 3 pieces. Helsley's also a free agent after this year, but this trade is probably a little bit more risky only because they were 3 players in Baez, Elisalt, and Dome who are not major league ready and have the upside, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the others are kind of major league ready. What are your thoughts on what they had to give up for the 31-year-old Helsley?
Um, I think it was about right of a package. If you think about the Mets infield, Baez, long time away, maybe 2+ years, probably no room for him. Dom, I think they saw his stock rise, so they wanted to sell high on him. Elisalt, I think they saw him look good this year too, but he was a 19th round pick. So I believe the Mets have to re-sign at least one of these guys. Like
Agreed.
it can't be a 3 month and done. So they need to re-sign either Helsley or Rogers. I'd rather Helsley, but we haven't seen either of them play. Um, but I think it's time for them they need to add a bat. And realistically, guys like Lindor. these guys have been underperforming the past month. So I don't know if they're hoping, maybe they snap out of it, but you know, they don't have no cheap lineup. Let's just put it like that. Like these guys should be playing better than they are. So, you know, but I think that they absolutely need to add something. If that's a center fielder, if that's somebody that you can just plug at DH and he can get you more power. Um, it's hard. It's hard. I love Tyrone Taylor. I think his defense is phenomenal, but he's practically an automatic out.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I don't know. Do the Mets maybe try and wiggle Ryan Stanek on the trade market to try and see what they can get for him? Open up a spot and use those assets to try and bring in a bat? I don't know.
I know. I mean, everyone's paying an arm and a leg for bullpen arms and starters. So I think that's definitely something to consider. Again, though, this bullpen, much more electric than it was 24 hours ago. So again, all in all, between the Tyler Rogers acquisition and the Ryan Helsley addition, overall, just summing up quickly, in thus far to the Mets has been Gregory Soto, Tyler Rogers, and Ryan Helsley. Out has been Jose Buto, Jesus Baez, Blade Tidwell, Drew Gilbert, Nate Dome, Wellington Arcena, Frank Elisalt, and Cameron Foster. So I think all in all, getting three big time bullpen arms, not having to relinquish any of your top prospects, whereas other teams have already. Uh, good job on David Stern's part. And, listen, I think that he's doing exactly what Billy Epler, for example, should have done in 2022, right? The Mets, yeah, they won 100 plus games, but they had holes. And Billy Epler didn't go ahead. He kind of nibbled at the trade market and didn't really go all in. And I
Mhm.
think that the trades in 2023, when we sold, and then the drafts that have been done by David Stearns, I think it was all building up to this moment, right? And Stearns is going for it, quite frankly. And
Yeah,
and honestly,
absolutely.
listen, I mean, I know as I just brought up before, Luis Robert probably not going to be traded. Yes, they need a bat. They also probably, I mean, not probably, they definitely need a starter if they can get one, a guy that can go beyond 5 innings.
Mhm.
Because right now it's looking like Reed Garrett and Ryan Stanek are now going to become sixth, seventh inning guys, opposed to back end pieces, which is a good thing, right? But
Mhm.
you still need starters to go beyond 5 innings, which is, no one can do so right now outside of David Peterson. But there's also two other factors that I think is the reasoning why Stearns is going for it. A, the ability to accumulate and produce pitching depth is something that he has shown, whether it's the lab, whether it's your minor league development. Look at the Jack Wenningers, the Watsons, the Ryan Lamberts, right? The Mets are able to pick guys in the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th round of the Major League Baseball draft and be able to turn them into stud prospects, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, you could look at the draft this year. They took, I think, only two or three or four high school players, and everybody else was a
Yeah.
college arm, right? So hopefully they ascend quickly. The other thing as well that you have to consider, and as baseball fans, you hate to even think about it, but there very well may be a work stoppage after the 2026 season with the labor negotiations. We heard that Bryce Harper cursed out Rob Manfred, right? A lockout is definitely possible. So let's say 2027, they only play half a season, or somehow they don't play at all, right? Which would be terrible for everyone. Then you're looking at your core being like a Lindor being 34 years old,
Yeah.
right? Right. You're looking at your core aging, right? So I just think that right now, when you look at it, especially the fact that somehow the Mets, after going 7-3 over their last 10, are only, I think, a game and a half out of having the best record in baseball, you go for it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
absolutely go for it. And kudos to David Stearns for recognizing that. And again, the fact that he has established one of the best bullpens in the game without giving up the Sproats, the McLeans, the Williams, the Tongs, uh, Weningers, Elian Pena, right? Ryan Clifford. That is ideal, especially, for instance, what we've seen other teams have to give up in the Durans and the Mason Miller. Sure, the three that we got are all free agents after this year, but with all the money coming off the books for the Mets after this year, as you pointed out before, you have to think one or two of those guys will be re-signed after the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean. Hope so.
And just going back quickly on the Johan Duran thing, uh, I know that he's under team control through 2028, and the Phillies did have to give up a hefty price. You have to think that if when the Mets inquired about Duran services, that they probably asked for a Carson Bench and probably like a Ryan Clifford or a Brandon Sproat. Considering that the Mets did end up with two pieces, three if you want to include Soto, but they're all free agents after the season. Would you have
Mhm.
done away with one of your top prospects in order to get a dominant, controllable arm towards the back end of your pen, like Johan Duran, or do you think that the Mets made the appropriate moves for 2025?
I think that they made the appropriate moves. I mean, Johan Duran would have been excellent. Imagine that, then could have theoretically, if say Diaz walks next year, you'd have him. But
Yep.
we have nobody in our system that can even like sniff the jock strap of Carson Bench. So there's like, I mean, maybe that wasn't a good analogy, but
No, that was great.
there's no outfielder that is even anywhere close to his skill set. So it's like, and he only drafted him last year. He's already raking at Double A. I think he goes up to Triple A before the year ends. I think he's looking at a real shot where he's at Port St. Lucie next year, where if he kills it, he takes the job.
Yep. Yep.
But I wouldn't have traded Carson Bench for Johan Duran. I would have built a package around either Sprout or I guess McLean.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like the Phillies gave them pretty solid value. So they have a young pitcher controllable for at least 5 years, who, if he rises to his potential, probably a two for Minnesota.
Right.
Then they got a guy who could possibly hit 25 home runs and either catch or play first base premium positions. So it's like, I don't think the Mets had anybody in their system that could have matched up with that. What was his name? Tate? Tait?
Eduardo Tate,
Tate.
Tait. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Mets had anybody in their system that could like mimic what he is.
No, no, and I
And I also
agree.
believe he's like 19 too.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Samuel Basillo for the Orioles, but I agree wholeheartedly, right? You look at what the Mets could have given up, and yeah, sure, it would have been a lot. Yeah, Duran would have been incredible for the Mets, but at the end of the day, getting Ryan Helsley and Tyler Rogers, also you mentioned in there that Bench has a possibility of being the opening day center fielder next year if all things continue going in this direction. Listen, Drew Gilbert was somebody that a lot of people thought could have been the center fielder of the future, but the Mets brass realized then and there that he wasn't progressing the way that they wanted to. He was going to be 25, so you trade away some of the pieces. And again, these were Billy Epler pieces. They were not
Yeah.
David Stearns guys, right? So you have to think about all that. When that occurs. And then also, you look at someone like, yes, the Mets need offense, right? So you look at what the Mariners had to give up for Eugenio Suarez, and you kind of say, wow, the Mets couldn't have done that. They couldn't have if the Diamondbacks wanted a first baseman, they couldn't have traded Ryan Clifford and two other prospects. Sure, but the Mariners have a little bit of a deeper system, especially when you're talking about potency, right? So I think that all in all, the Mets got their guys, and I think that when you're looking around the Mets system, I truly do believe that the only way that the Mets are going to give up a McLean or a Sproat or a Clifford or any of these guys is if it's a controllable asset coming back. And I, for one, was not going to pay out the ass like the Padres had to for Mason Miller, right? If you think that two out of your four that are within MLB's top 100 are going to be had for Johan Duran, then that really depletes our system, right?
Yeah.
So being able to use the depth that you have accumulated within the system to get two, three really good arms
Yeah.
it definitely helps the club right
That's
now.
and that's the moral of the story. They built the incredible depth in the system where, you know, once these draftees get in there, like you're gonna forget about these guys.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, right? And
Yep.
And just before we tap into the starting pitching and the outfielder market or the offensive market, if you want to say, that the Mets are turning their attention to. I do want to say this first and foremost: the reports are coming in that that the White Sox wanted Jonah Tong.
Yeah, I just saw that.
You got to be kidding me! What are they smoking?
Get out of here, bro. Lou Bob ain't even that good.
He's got a 652 or 632. I forget what it was.
Get out of here.
OPS. Come on now.
He's smoking crack, bro. He's not a superstar.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's the other thing too. It's like, listen,
Would you
right
give
now,
up Sprout?
no,
Exactly. No.
no, no. And Sproat's not even ranked anymore. Right. So that just kind of goes to show you. And, just
Who's the
kind of,
best real quick, who's the best prospect you'd give up for Lou Bob? I wouldn't even give up Clifford.
I wouldn't either. I would not.
I think for Lou Bob, I wouldn't even want to give up AJ Ewing, but that's probably what you would have to.
I
Probably that, either Santucci and Weniger.
I agree with you. And the other thing too is when you look at it, he's got $20 million options for 2026 and 2027. Let's say that he helps the Mets get to where they want to go this
Yeah.
year, but they don't decide to pay him $20 million, which that could be used elsewhere next season.
Yeah.
What was the point? Because then you're trading top prospects for a rental, right? And
Exactly,
again,
dude.
he's not even having that great of a season.
No.
So when you kind of look at that, that's just ridiculous, right? And so I mean, listen, right now as it stands, okay, we spoke about Carson Benj before. Theoretically speaking, you have to think that let's say Robert doesn't go anywhere. Robert's not going anywhere. Bader's traded. Do Cedric Mullins or Ramon Laureano tickle your fancy? I mean, obviously, you're not going to give up an arm and a leg for them, right? But those are two names. Jaron Duran is still being talked about, potentially with the Padres. Stephen Kwan. I mean, Kwan's not a center fielder, but you could put Kwan in left and try to see if Nimmo can play center field. I mean, again, I think that any of us, especially with how good the Mets defensively are around the diamond, I think we would take a step back defensively in order to get better offensively.
Yeah.
But again, you would have to give up an arm and a leg for Stephen Kwan. So
Yeah.
I truthfully think that unless the Mets, yeah, and then there's guys like Lars Nootbaar and Alec Burleson. Alec Burleson is
Yeah.
not a center fielder by any means, more of a DH first baseman, corner outfielder. But I just now looking at the market, canvassing the market, I think maybe the Mets should go back to the Orioles and try to give up two lower tier prospects for Cedric Mullins or a Ramon Laureano, who's got an 800 plus OPS.
Yeah. Might be the smarter move at this point,
You know,
especially in terms of prospect value, what you're giving up and what you're getting back. Honestly, I'm personally not the biggest fan of Mullins. I feel like his bat isn't anything like that much better than what we have.
no, I mean, listen, he's got a 738 OPS and he's starting to hit the ball a little bit better. I mean, advanced metrics do him no justice whatsoever. He's a
Hmm.
great base runner, great defensively, but again, Tyrone Taylor's the same deal. He's got 15 home runs though. Okay, so he's on pace for like anywhere between 18 and 22, 23. Again, the power would be great, but he strikes out a ton. I mean, doesn't hit the ball incredibly well, doesn't barrel up the ball. So that would be an issue. I think Ramon Laureano would probably cost them a little bit less. I don't know. I mean, this market's just so weird, but I think Laureano is definitely someone that you would look at on the season this year for the Orioles. 15 home runs, 290 average, 884 OPS. Wow. Uh, and when it comes to advanced metrics, I mean, Baseball Savant loves them. I would expect that would cost them maybe like a Nick Morabito, Daverson Gutierrez, something along those lines. Again,
Yeah.
two top prospects. But given what we have, I honestly think, honestly here, okay, unless they can get Nimmo to play center field and they can upgrade by getting like an Alec Burleson over in left field. See, that's someone who's under contract that I would trade actual pieces for. Not saying our top tier guys, but again, he would provide some real power. But
Yeah.
I think something that the Mets really need to consider is if they can't get a center fielder for their price and they don't want to move Nimmo out, do you go ahead and you pull a 2015 Michael Conforto and just call up Carson Benj and have him play center field?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think that, instead of just fucking trading more and more, like, dude, just he's hot. Fucking let it rip.
let it
What's the
ride.
worst thing that you have to do? Send him back down? But like,
Yeah, yeah, and that's why to me, like someone else that I mentioned before, Alec Burleson. Listen, if guys like Duran and Luis Robert are going to be costing you a top two, top three, top four prospect, you're not doing that, right? Not sure what the Cardinals would want for him. I would definitely trade Brandon Sproat for Alec Burleson.
yeah,
I would build a package around him or Ryan Clifford. I think that the Mets may have to focus on upgrading the offense somewhere else than center field if Mullins and Laureano are the best that they're going to get. But again, I think Laureano might be a good fit. It all kind of remains to be seen about what the Orioles are going to ask for in return. And I think that that's kind of like
yeah,
the biggest what if at that point. And then you go over to starting pitcher, like, yo, the Mets need an arm that can go beyond 5 innings. And I think that the one difference
they
between
do.
starting pitcher and center field is like Carson Bench hasn't played in AAA, right? But if the Mets don't get a starter, they could call up McLean or Sproat. And David Stearns even brought that up at his presser last week, and we'll hear from him tonight at around 6:30. But the Mets have pitchers in the minor leagues that can come up and make an impact down the stretch. They don't necessarily have that offensively. Uh,
Yeah.
some names that are being thrown around. I know I brought up Edward Cabrera and Sandy Alcantara before. I thought there would be realistic pieces that the Mets could possibly go after. We know that they have spoken to the Marlins, but if they're asking for Spencer Jones from the Yankees, they've got to be asking for Carson Bench from the Mets.
Bro, Spencer Jones isn't even ranked on top 100. So I mean, based on what I read, apparently not a lot of teams think that high of Spencer Jones or the Yankees prospects.
He's not within
So
the top 100.
I don't think so.
Wow, he's not.
Yeah, Spencer Jones is not a top 100 prospect.
Hey, so then listen, maybe the Mets can go ahead and they can say, hey, even though it'll suck to see these guys when once they're ready in the big, seeing them in division, maybe you go
Mhm.
ahead and you trade like would you do, let's say, for Edward Cabrera? Because personally, even though Sandy Alcantara has looked like he's found his stuff lately, I'm more of an Edward Cabrera type of guy with that changeup and that fastball. For Edward Cabrera, under team control for another 2 years, would you do Sproat, Ryan Clifford, and then one other prospect?
It's a hard one. It really, I guess, only depends on what they really think of Clifford. If they possibly think that he could maybe be a first baseman or something like that, then I don't know, because you'd be trading your only 30 plus home run power hitter in the system.
Yeah, yeah, dude, and that's why it's just so Padres on the prowl for a center fielder. That's been the report obviously all day. Now the Yankees are discussing a trade with the Pirates for David Bednar. I know we're getting off topic here, but that's just how the trade deadline goes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that it would absolutely have to work, especially because Cabrera hasn't pitched in such high leverage games down the stretch like the Mets are about to embark on. Sandy Alcantara, I think that the Marlins are going to want more than what he's actually proved to be this season. Um, the Padres, Dylan Cease has been floated around. He'll be a free agent after this year, though. Obviously, if the Padres are really going for it, not sure why you trade Cease. Merrill Kelly is one name that I really think the Mets should go after from the Arizona Diamondbacks. And he's nothing like sexy, right? But he's a guy that's durable, has pitched in the World Series, mind you, back in 2023, and has also year in and year out provided a ton of value for the Diamondbacks. This year he's 9-6 with a 3.22 ERA, 121 Ks, 106 WHIP. I think Merrill Kelly would be a perfect fit for the Mets, someone who can give you 6+ innings in a start,
Yeah.
because again, that's my biggest issue with the starters right now is that, yeah, getting Tyler Rogers and getting Ryan Helsley is great, prolonging that bullpen. But what good is a dominant bullpen if you can't get to the fifth inning? If you can't get to the sixth inning, kind of like Frankie Montas showed the other night, right? Just setting the bullpen up for a disaster.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that would, and I feel like Merrill Kelly maybe wouldn't cost that much because of his age, contract,
Yeah.
all of that. I feel like maybe he wouldn't cost the world, but that wouldn't be a bad move.
No, maybe go with Merrill Kelly. I mean, again, it just you don't with the market where it is, you would probably still have to pay a decent amount. I mean, maybe you go like Jacob Reimer and I don't know, Jonathan Pintaro and Jeremy Rodriguez. I don't know. It's just so
Yeah.
hard to mix and match. I mean, none of us saw what the Mets gave up for Tyler Rogers yesterday, and we kind of assumed what they were going to have to give up for Ryan Helsley. It's all dependent, and especially that both of those guys are rentals. A guy like Merrill Kelly, he'll be a rental. Dylan Cease, he would be a rental. Zach Gallen, he would be a rental. And Zach Gallen's kind of like in the boat of Sandy Alcantara, despite
Yeah.
him being a rental. Very good pitcher, but has not been good this season. And then you have someone like Charlie Morton, who, listen, if the Mets are going to go and get Ramon Laureano, just bring Charlie Morton in. Okay. Morton has been there, done that, not having the greatest season, but started off much slower than he has pitched recently. And being a veteran presence, you know that he can go more than 5 innings if he's pitching well, right? He's got a rubber arm. So I think that listen, we'll see how the market develops here in the final 4 hours, little over four
Mhm.
hours to go. But boy, oh boy, I need another bat in this lineup, and
Absolutely.
Lord knows we need another starter, especially one that can go beyond 5 innings. So again, as we wrap up here, and stay tuned on our Instagram page because whatever the Mets do, we will post there. We'll be on X for the remainder of the day. Matt, give me your predictions. You don't have to give me packages, okay? But
Yeah.
give me your predictions right now. What bat do the Mets acquire? What starter do they acquire between now and 6 p.m. if they do so?
Wouldn't it be funny if they ended up getting Luis Robert and Adrian Hauser?
Kill me with Hauser. I know he's having a good season, but no.
Yeah. Um, Part of me feels like White Sox are gonna come down a little bit on that Luis Robert offer. I don't think Mets would never give them Jonathan.
But again, it kind of comes back to what we said before.
I think at this point it'll be Mullins. I think
Do they
that's
get
my
Norm?
opinion for center field.
Do they get Norm?
I'm gonna say no, and they go with a call up.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I'm gonna say. They get priced out of a starting pitcher. They realize that they have guys at AAA that are young that these teams probably want. So,
Okay. I think that the Mets are going to end up with a Ramon Laureano because they need somebody that can hit left-handed pitching.
mhm.
So I think they're going to end up with a Ramon Laureano, and then I think David Stearns is going to say F it and go all in and try to get either Edward Cabrera or Sandy Alcantara. Gut feeling there because listen, dude, what we saw them give up yesterday,
Yeah,
you gotta go all in now. You gotta
yeah,
go all
I
in. And I'm
agree.
not listen, I'm not saying trade Jet Williams or Carson Benj or Jonah Tong or Nolan McLean, but beyond that, again,
Agreed.
trade Sproat while his value's up if you're going to get a big piece. Reimer, Clifford, Ewing, Santucci, Wenninger, whatever it takes. Just bring in a starter that can go beyond 5 innings. And then if you supplement with a Ramon Laureano in center field, the offense and the staff both get better along with that electric bullpen. Um, Maddie, with 4 hours to go until the trade deadline, you got anything else for us?
No, I'll be on Twitter next for the rest of the day. Itching for more moves. Why do I feel like a real big Passan bomb is gonna drop soon?
I agree. I agree. So that's why, Maddie, once you get out of work, obviously, I have the convenience of being home. That's not a good thing. Okay.
Yeah.
But if a big passing bomb drops, and maybe even if it doesn't, if the Mets pick up a Laureano or and even like a Charlie Morton or something like that, maybe we go live later on Instagram and discuss whatever moves may come to fruition. And with that, again, happy trade deadline day, guys. Let's hope the Mets make another splash or two and really and really just go for it. All right. Let's bring it.
Let's
Listen,
do it.
even if we trade Jet Williams, if it means winning a World Series, I don't care because I am not getting any younger. All right.
Yeah.
And neither of us are.
Agree.
Okay.
Agree.
With that
Agree.
being said, remember to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We are at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Download the SeatGeek app, punch in code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. And last but not least, head over to smackandsunflowerseeds.com, punch in code Ian05405 to get 10% off of any purchase. And for Matty DeSantis, I'm Ian Bosniak. David Stearns, we trust you, brother. Do the right thing. Good night,
Yes,
everybody, and let's
sir.
go Mets.
Let's go, Mets.